Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man, and my co host for this evening is Rob Heatherly. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We want to wish everybody on the panel uh, who's watching online, who's in the chat room, a very happy World UFO Day. Today, the world celebrates UFOs. Perhaps tomorrow we'll celebrate transparency. That's what we're pushing for here on this channel, on Rob's channel, and other UFO channels of the like. Tonight, we're going to feature some footage from the UFO Festival in Roswell, which is the 75th anniversary of the 1947 crash on the Mac Brazel farm. Um, so come along with us for the journey. After the video, we are going to um, talk about some other issues in the news concerning UFOs and ufology. One thing I want to state is a lot of the footage that I needed for tonight's show will be presented at a later date on Thursday. I'm hoping Thursday of this next week. And that will include interviews with some notable legends within ufology, like Travis Walton, Mark D'Antonio, maybe Mike Barra from Ancient Aliens, and the like. That way, we can present that to you in a better format. Tonight, I'm just going to show you what's going on in Roswell, the festivities, the people, the locations, and such. So sit back and enjoy, get some popcorn, and here we go.
For a while, but we made it this year, we figured.
Ever since you're a little kid, you always hear about Roswell and the aliens.
We're seeing all walks of life, human and non-human. We have pets in costumes, we have humans in costumes, we have people with that are aliens, we have people who we don't even know what they are.
The gathering kicked off today and lasts through the weekend.
We've been planning it like this trip like a year maybe.
People tell us it's something they can finally check off their bucket lists.
We'd never been to Roswell, and it has a lot of history. We thought it'd be a lot of fun, and so far it has been.
UFO believers say they come to explore conspiracies for themselves.
We want to know the truth, because we know it happened.
And to learn more about the alleged spaceship crash in 1947.
We have a theory too. They're hiding right now in the bottomless lake. We made that determination that our relatives would be there.
There's just a lot of evidence and stuff that backs up, they try to cover it up.
The event offers activities for the whole family. This year features new attractions, including a spacewalk with black lights and animatronics.
There was lots of street
This is the
parking, and it
UFO
was free.
Museum.
No meters. The ticket booth was located in the front when we entered the building. The entrance to the museum and the research center are located to the right, and the gift shop is located on the left. The UFO Museum is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but closed on Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Day. The entrance fee for adults is $5, children 5 to 15 $2, and children 4 or under are free. Seniors and military are $3. When we entered into the museum part, you could see that the place was hopping. There were a lot of visitors. And the museum starts with the Roswell UFO incident in 1947.
Yeah, that's where our merch was. And that's my segment, about a foot and a half, but I am represented.
Army airfield. After that, there was conspiracy theories claiming that the debris involved a flying saucer and dead aliens, and that the truth had been covered up by the United States government. The museum documents with newspaper clippings, interviews, and other documents, such as a press release on July 8, 1947 from the Roswell Army Airfield issuing a statement that they had recovered a flying disc. Then another statement comes back later from the Army, quickly retracting the statement and saying that the crash object was a conventional weather balloon. There's also a small room where you can watch the late retired Lieutenant Colonel Jesse Marcel, where he says he believed the debris to be retrieved as extraterrestrial.
This is a mural on the outside of a building in Roswell. No, Logan, this is part of the festival at the Roswell. This is the convention center.
Two key players in Roswell's UFO legacy will be the first inductees into the UFO Walk of Fame. The walk is set to make its debut at this year's UFO Festival, with markers installed in the sidewalk starting at Pioneer Plaza. One of the first honorees is the late Stanton Friedman. He was a nuclear physicist and ufologist who investigated the 1947 crash and supported the hypothesis it was an alien spacecraft. The other is the late Air Force officer Jesse Marcel Sr., who was on the team that took custody of the crash debris. He said he believed what the team found was extraterrestrial. Family members of both men will be in attendance. The UFO Fest runs July 1st through the 3rd.
predator.
We are here at Roswell, the UFO capital of the world! My name is Richard Woods, and I'm with my wife, Star Woods. Whoa, we found the crash site right here in Roswell, on the front lawn of City Hall. Whoa!
It's extraterrestrial!
And intergalactic! That's pretty small. Thanks for leading us to the crash site, buddy. Gus and Lucy's place!
Welcome to Gus and Lucy's place in Roswell, New Mexico.
We're here at Gus and Lucy's place with
Lucy
and Jonathan. Woo! We're so happy to be here during the UFO festival. How's it going?
Awesome. Great.
There's a lot of people, a lot of things to do, lots of kids, lots of adults, a lot of fun for everyone, lots of arts and crafts, lots of events, lots of music, speakers, everything alien.
And you have a lot of Roswell stuff, which is amazing. So if you're in Roswell, come on down here and check it out!
Yeah. Welcome to Roswell, New Mexico. This is Gus and Lucy's place, and this is our store. In this store, we have alien inflatables, everything alien. We have shirts, we have stuff for kids, hats, postcards, jewelry, we have it all. So come down and visit us.
Come over.
In Roswell, New Mexico.
UFO water from Roswell, New Mexico.
Wow, I am here at the UFO crash site where E introduced himself as E and greeted me. What's going on, E? No, E, I don't want to go back with you. I don't know. Oh, man, E, what are you doing, buddy? What? Oh, we're gonna enjoy the festival. It's the Dunkin' Donuts of Roswell!
Welcome to Roswell!
Cats from the past, welcome to Roswell!
Legend has it, back in 1947, an extraterrestrial UFO crashed here in Roswell, New Mexico!
There have been so many conspiracy theories that the occupants have been captured and that there's been cover-ups. Can you tell us what really happened?
Well, that's our show for the UFO Festival highlights for tonight. Now, we're going to go into several other topics, but this is just a brief showing of what is going on in Roswell, the things that you can do there, and all the activities. Now, I do know that last night I spoke on the phone with Travis Walton. He called me via Tom Reed's phone from Roswell and gave me his personal contact information. And he plans on doing an interview soon on this channel. So I hope you can be around for that. Also, I got a call today from Alien Girl 111, who some of you might know, who is also a YouTuber. She is at Roswell and hanging out with Tom Reed and Travis Walton and others. And she told me that Tom and Matt Moniz, who have been on this show, were recognized publicly outside the UFO Museum for being on the UFO Man show. And that UFO Man is being recognized by others, strangers in Roswell. So I'm extremely proud of that. We're making an impact. Pretty soon, Rob will be noticed when he goes to Roswell. So that'll be cool. So the next segment of our show, we're going to show a video that's concerning Travis Taylor, who's on the Skinwalker Ranch show. And he's also the chief astrophysicist working for the UAPTF. And I want to show this video clip, even though it's been around YouTube for a bit, so that we can talk about it. Here we go.
Now, one of the U.S. government's premier UFO investigators has stepped out of the shadows to openly discuss his work for the UAP Task Force, an organization created by Congress to evaluate unidentified aerial phenomena.
Now, this investigator is not unknown. In fact, he's been hiding in plain sight, and he spoke exclusively about his investigations with the I-Team's George Knapp.
Set up over close to the doorway.
Television viewers know astrophysicist Dr. Travis Taylor as an intrepid investigator of UFOs and the paranormal at Skinwalker Ranch and on other History Channel programs. Only a handful of people in the world knew that Taylor was leading a double life, secretly working as the chief scientist for the Pentagon's UAP task force.
But I would say, other than the people who already knew on the task force, you're the first person to figure it out, George.
As a scientific prodigy, Taylor earned advanced degrees at a young age and has spent his entire adult life working on classified projects, first for the U.S. Army, then for defense contractors. He wrote a book about how the U.S. government should prepare for alien contact, which caught the attention of Jay Stratton, a high-ranking intelligence official who's been involved with each of the Pentagon's secretive UFO investigations, including OSAP, based in Los Las Vegas, ATIP, its successor, and later took charge of a third effort, the UAP Task Force, even before that team was formally created by Congress.
Jay Stratton, the director of the UAP Task Force, asked me if I would be interested in being the chief scientist. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Of course I would.
One of the primary jobs of the task force was to write a report to Congress summarizing the known evidence about UFOs. The team had already created a classified briefing consisting of the most intriguing military encounters, starting with the 2004 Tic Tac incident. The task force whittled down a huge database into 144 of the very best cases. Dr. Taylor helped write the final report.
But we picked sources that we knew had a chain of custody of the data. And out of those 144, 143 of them we still couldn't figure out what they were, where they came from, and what their intent was.
Civilian debunkers have tried to explain away the Tic Tac and gimbal UFOs as birds or reflected light or far-off jet engines, as if military investigators were oblivious to such possibilities. When the UAP task force determined objects to be genuine unknowns, it wasn't merely relying on video clips for evidence.
Here's the thing, a skeptic and a debunker, they take their results by starting from the beginning, by knowing that the result is going to be this. So they take the analysis to lead them in the direction to do that. And the data that we had, in many cases, there was more of it than what the general public has and what was released. And so when we say that we had a thing that was from multiple sensors and it told us multiple things, and we also had eyewitness accounts, audio information, and so on.
Taylor and the task force spent 3 years analyzing the 144 incidents, including dozens of bizarre objects that buzzed multiple Navy ships in 2019. Some of them were spheres that swarmed and kept pace with the warships. Others appeared to be greenish pyramids.
That time 0424 Zulu.
Task force members were stunned to hear a Navy official tell a congressional hearing last month that all of these were, quote, drones, as if the mystery had been solved. Someone had to disregard the work of the task force to make that claim.
We had a lot of sensor data on some of them that we couldn't determine what they are. I mean, if it's our near peers doing it, that's scary. But at the same time, we also never found any evidence that it was our near peers doing it.
The drone conclusion was reached after the UAP task force was done and before the new UFO program, AIMSOG, even started. So who did it? George Knapp, 8 News Now.
So, Rob, what do you think about that?
I think that somebody wrote in the chat where they said that they called in season 1 wanting to keep tabs on the Skinwalker from some entity in the Pentagon. As we found out with Lou and all them, that there are many redundant UAP or UFO programs in the DoD apparatus and militaries that likely aren't aware each other exists. And I wrote somebody, and I hope they didn't take offense to that, Snoopy 100, that it was very likely that some other organization within the DoD that wanted to keep in tabs on this probably wouldn't have known that he was already in a UAP-related task force of some kind, because they don't, unless they have the special clearance access, they wouldn't know if they're not read into it directly. Just like with Lou having ATIP for so many years, and no one knew it existed except the direct superiors that he answered to. So
right.
I think if he wasn't ready to come out and let this be known, that George Knapp wouldn't have brought it forward to the public. I'm sure he probably cleared it with him first.
Do you feel that he's going to be working in the future with Lou in regards to furthering the goal of getting more transparency to the UFO topic?
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't, because Travis mentioned that he was one of the authors for the congressional report last year of the classified and the unclassified version, and it looks like they were held back, like what Weinstein was saying. It looked strained, like two people wrote it, one that wanted disclosure and one that didn't. It was filtered through her of what they couldn't say. They wanted to say more, but they weren't allowed to. So I'm certain that he's going to be part, or part of the disclosure movement with Congress to move it forward, and probably has already testified what he knows, given how long he's been in that organization, in those different organizations. If he was with OSAP, he may have worked somewhat with Lou somewhere along the line of that somewhere.
Right. It seemed to me that his coming out at this time seemed advantageous for him concerning, the UFO anniversary in Roswell and the fact that the UAP hearing occurred recently. I wondered why all of a sudden he broke his silence and came clean. What do you think?
I'm not sure. One other observation is that Lou kind of digressed in the public eye, at least on social media and things. And he was saying that some others would come forward. I think this is a natural progression to that. And this gives credibility to Travis Taylor's argument with Congress to be out and letting people know that he was part of that, part of those special programs. So I think that's going to help the cause to get more exposure with it, because a lot of people support him, and what's popular with the voting base is going to be popular with Congress. So I see it as this good strategy.
We do have another clip in regards to him where they discuss the evaluation process that they used to quantify and vet the footages that we have already been privy to, which would be the gimbal, the go fast, and the tic tac. So let's play that, and then we'll go on from there.
Can you talk about your work as chief scientist for the task force? What did you do? Did you look at material that came in, videos to analyze things of that sort?
Yeah, so there were a lot of different data sets that came in that we looked at, tried to figure out what they were. There were some that turned out to be weather balloons, for example. In fact, there were several, but there were many that there is not enough data and sensor data. When we had a lot of sensor data on some of them, that we couldn't determine what they are. I mean, if it's our near peers doing it, that's scary. But at the same time, we also never found any evidence that it was our near peers doing it, right?
You were instrumental in writing the report that went to that was demanded by Congress, that was made public, the 144 cases, right?
I was one of the people who wrote words that are in that thing. It was a team, and we worked diligently on it for a long time. And we started out with everything we could think of in the kitchen sink and put in it, and then we realized it's going to a public audience and to Congress and this thing. So we had to write it in a way that they would understand and get the point. And the point, the 9 pages that came out, there's a golden nugget in those 9 pages if people would just pay attention.
Yeah.
There were 144 cases we studied in a period of about 3 years, and in that time frame of just studying 144 cases. And these were only cases that were from credible military sources, right? And not from just MUFON or, because they may be having all over the world, but we picked sources that we knew had a chain of custody of the data. And out of those 144, 143 of them, we still couldn't figure out what they were, where they came from, and what their intent was.
So by the time it gets to 144, you've already weeded things out that are easily explainable. Those are legitimate mysteries that are left over there. You, of course, see social media debunkers, armchair experts who take some of the videos that were studied by the task force that we helped put out. They explain them away in a variety of different ways. It makes the military look like idiots. They have to be idiots to not understand what these guys think they know.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's part of the peer review process in science engineering. But here's the thing: a skeptic and a debunker, they take their results by starting from the beginning, by knowing that the result is going to be this. So they take the analysis to lead them in the direction to do that. I'm not here to believe or disbelieve I'm here to find out what's going on and do analysis on the data we have. And the data that we had, in many cases, there was more of it than what the general public has and what was released. And so when we say that we had a thing that was from multiple sensors and it told us multiple things, and we also had eyewitness accounts, audio information, and so on, then you put all that together, it's a much bigger picture than just saying, oh, well, we're not going to listen or look at any of that. We're only going to look at what's on this few seconds of video, and we can tell you for sure from those few seconds of video what it is. I don't think there's a person on the planet that can really do that and do it honestly.
You're an optical physicist among your many degrees, right?
Yeah.
And so you could look at an image and tell if it's a flare or a bird or something like that?
Well, I would like to hope so. I can certainly look at it with the various analysis tools and tell you that if it is something as mundane as that, that's usually easy to determine. There are some things like camera effects that you may see. Camera artifacts will sometimes confuse someone and make them think they've captured something. And sometimes people will use a camera artifact as, oh, that's just a flare in the camera, or oh, that's just a bokeh effect, or oh, that's this or that. And without really doing the analysis, you can't just say, oh, it's birds, don't worry about looking at it.
They also, people who are describing it as bokeh, don't have other data sources that you have.
That's correct. And that's one of the things that people have to accept, that there is sometimes more data, and you say, well, then you show it to us. Well, in some cases, we never had the intent to classify things to keep people from knowing it. Things are classified because of the sensor or the platform that it was taken from. We don't want to give away how we do things, right, to our near peers. You certainly, if we have a magic widget that we can say look into the Kremlin or something, we certainly wouldn't want them to know we had that magic widget, right? Well, I'm not saying we do. I'm just giving that as a hypothetical example. So we certainly, if we've got platforms that captured other data, and it's data from a sensor that nobody knows exists, we're not going to release that data because then you'd know the sensor exists.
Right.
So he told us a little bit more about how things are evaluated. Can't talk. How things are evaluated and how things run behind the scenes. What do you think, Rob?
I think that there's a lot that the sources and methods they can't reveal, but they can strip the metadata and some of those identifiers out. But this is where Christopher Mellon spoke to there being an overclassification that's hurting our government and our military, the DoD, to be able to do their job effectively. And there's a lot more they could share with the American public, but they're not arbitrarily. And that's what they're trying to get stripped down. And with the hearings, I'll back it up, of the report that he helped write last year with the congressional report on June 25th. There were 143 out of 144 cases that remain unsolved that fit the number 5 category of other. Only one of them turned out to be a balloon. And the rest that were examined by scientists of his stature, including him, they couldn't find an answer to, that did have multiple data sets. And that was what was in that report. And part of it was classified, like with the congressional hearings now. A lot of people were disappointed in the congressional hearings we had, but that was just the opening. You got to approach this like going to trial. The defense and the prosecution are coming at it from either end with the best position they have, and then they're going to mediate, down to the middle somewhere. So this was just establishing the foundations, and there's going to be a lot more to come, especially once they get immunity out there, to where people can have permission to speak freely and get around their NDAs and such. It's going to be a game changer, and I do think that there's going to be a lot more made publicly known than what we know now. So we just have to be patient and wait.
Also on your channel, the new one you started with Shannon, called, what is it, Military Witnesses of UAP?
Military Witnesses to UAP.
Right. Rob is bringing on, along with his partner Shannon, several military witnesses to testify to their encounters and their sightings and the trauma they went through. So if you get a chance, you need to check out his channel. It is growing. They have good stories on there. Shannon is a good host, and I think Rob is the co-host over there. You go ahead and check it out. I want to mention right now, rather than at the end of the live stream, that Rob and Shannon, along with several other notable military figures and ufologists, are running a charity for the Wounded Warrior Project, or through the Wounded Warrior Project. This is their logo, the Wounded Warrior Project. The name of the charity is this: Shannon Scott's annual Vets and Vets for Wounded Vets and Pets fundraiser. So we will keep you updated on that, and when we know more about what's going on, we will let you know. Now, Rob, do you want to discuss that a little bit?
Sure. That was something that is close to near and dear to all our hearts. Shannon received a substantial amount of assistance through the Wounded Warrior Project as a large reason why he's still around, and he wanted to give something back. And same with Lou. All of us actually that we've seen a great many of our fellow vets that were benefited by the Wounded Warrior Project, and we're also going to be giving part of the funds raised to Pinups for Pets. That is an organization that goes and sells calendars to get money up so they can go visit wounded soldiers in the hospital and things, but also for the St. Francis no-kill animal shelter that's near Lou that's struggling to keep the animals fed. So we came up with the idea that we wanted to support veterans and veterinarians. So we came up with the idea of Vets and Pets, that we're going to support them both. So we're hoping to do some good things, and people aren't veteran lovers, and surely they're dog lovers and things. So if we can't get some attention with one direction, we'll get it with the other, hopefully. So we're optimistic it'll do some good work and be successful.
Right. So when this charity comes out, Rob says that I will be doing a live stream with some military witnesses, and those witnesses will be part of the charity. So check us out when they're on. And I'm sure Rob and Shannon will post up some information on their channel on where you can go to check out the charity or donate or support the cause, because it's a very important one. I'm a disabled veteran as well. I actually got hurt in the Army while on active duty, but I'm doing much better now. I'm relearning how to walk, so that's a good thing. And I do know that Rob has some issues as well. We at the UFO Man channel are 100% supporting this effort. So if you're interested in information, you can contact me at my email that will be listed underneath this posting at the end of the live stream in the description, and I will send that information over to Rob. Okay. The next video we're going to watch is sailors contradict the Department of Defense in regards to those flashing pyramid-shaped objects against the green background. Because I guess during the UAP hearing, they just after the UAP hearing, they came out and said, the Pentagon came out and said, "Oh, they're drones." Well, listen to this.
Well, a congressional hearing last month reigniting the debate over UFOs. My next guest is an investigative filmmaker. He says Navy crew members have confirmed a 2019 incident where their fleet was apparently swarmed by at least 100 unidentified flying objects. Here to talk about it is Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy, thank you for coming on. We very much appreciate it. The Department of Defense tells Congress these UFOs are probably drones, but Navy crews are telling you that these objects are doing unexplainable things. So what do they mean by that?
Right. So the American public, as well as Congress, was not shown the truth. They were shown one piece out of 6 pieces of corroborative evidence that I provided to the public. So it was a lie through omission. What really happened on that day goes far beyond, actually, across those days, go far beyond one ship. This involved numerous ships. I'll say up to about 10 of them that were experiencing these unidentifieds that flew with impunity and were, in a sense, just swarming these Navy warships. So this series is massive on scale and scope. The controllers of these units, they have not been identified by our Department of Defense. This is a national security issue. So the obfuscation that we saw in that congressional hearing, it's very unfortunate. But I do have hope, because I believe there is new legislation that is going to bring to light the UFO transparency, because this is a real issue.
But we see these things, Jeremy, and I'm wondering what you think it is. I mean, are we talking about alien spaceships? Are we talking about potentially black projects from this country or other countries? Or is this just simply the stuff that's out of our technological range?
Right. So that's kind of the key point, is that I don't know, we don't know, our Department of Defense doesn't know. They've ruled out that it's our black technology, and they ruled that out definitively. So whose is it? Now, could it be Russia? Could it be China? That has essentially been ruled out at this point. Where's the landing site? Where's the takeoff? We're talking about a massive scope and scale of 100 plus of these units flying around. Now, the question is, they also showed unique properties, unique abilities. It is understood by our Navy that they're transmedium in nature. They were able to go into the water and out of the water. And I provided video evidence that shows something like that.
Yeah.
So the real question is, whose are these? I'm not going to speculate. I don't know. That's our Department of Defense that needs to know.
I want to play some sound if I can, Jeremy. This is from the hearing, and then I'll get your response on the other side. Watch.
There have been no collisions between any U.S. assets and one of these UAPs, correct?
We have not had a collision. We've had at least 11 near misses, though.
It just amazes me there have been no collisions. And if we don't know where these things are going, Jeremy, if we have no idea what their capabilities are, you would think, and these possibly were drones, you would think there would be a collision at some point in time.
Right. Well, here's the deal. What does drone mean? Nobody's arguing if it's manned or unmanned. The question is, whose are they? Now, I'll tell you something. That was a tricky thing. Collisions, they're talking about near misses. We don't want those. But I will tell you this. As of just a couple weeks ago, I am directly knowledgeable about the fact that our Air Force sometimes engages kinetically, which means fires upon what we know to be UFOs. But the other problem is sometimes we don't. And how they determine that is a problem. A lot of this UFO information is not going up the chain of command as it should be. And that's why people are providing me video.
Not going up the chain of command. Would you consider this an intelligence failure, that we don't know more information about what these are?
This is an intelligence failure beyond the scope of what we saw in 9/11. If we don't know who's operating right off our coast of California and flying with impunity in our restricted airspace, we have a real problem.
I got to go here, but one crew member called the energy capacity of these, quoting here, world-changing. Fair assessment?
Yeah, essentially the height, the altitude, the number of them, the duration, if you add it all up, we need to know who built this technology. Let it be from somewhere else or from here, that's irrelevant. We need to know the operators of these units.
Yes, we need to know the operators of the units, but I think that's coming down the road, because right now, I personally believe this. Now, I don't know if any of you believe this in the chat room, but I think in some cases they do know the operators of some of the units. Maybe not necessarily all of them, but some of them. I've had this feeling for a while. Now, there is no definitive statement out there saying that they know. I know that through transparency, we really want to hear those words coming from the government, which is weird because I already know what I saw up close was alien in nature. alien in scope, and there was something going on. Whether it comes from a different dimension, a different reality, a different multiverse, or space, that's yet to be determined. But what I saw was so mind blowing, it changed my world paradigm. And I've had to rethink how I live my life because of what I saw with 12 other people. Now, within the last week, I've had 3 UFO sightings outside the back of where I live. One night, I saw an orange ball the size of a basketball at arm's length moving from north to south. And then I saw it for about 30 seconds, and then it disappeared behind some trees and I couldn't see it anymore. I also saw another orange ball turn into 4 orange lights and ended up flashing, and it was traveling south toward me, and then it turned toward the east and went off really quick, and I saw it change into 4 orange lights, and these lights were vivid orange, like kind of like the orange in the background behind Rob and I. That orange, maybe a little oranger than that. And they were flashing all at the same time, and it was moving off at a fast rate of speed. And I lost it when I couldn't see it anymore. Now, besides that, I saw a silver ball above some pine trees the other night, and it just popped out of nowhere. I just turned to look one last time, and it was like, boom, there it was. And it was round, and you could tell depth when you looked at it. So you could tell that it was a sphere, but it was at least the size of a softball at arm's length. And I would say it was probably 50 feet away and about 250 feet in the air. No sound, popped out of nowhere, took off like a bat out of heck. Just poof, gone. Okay? This was all between 11:15 and about 1 o'clock in the morning. No, early morning, 1 a.m. So I've had 3 sightings, and each time I forgot to take my phone outside, so I didn't get it on film. But I reported it right away. The last one that I saw, my neighbor saw it too. So I have a witness to one of the sightings. So it's really interesting. You need to keep looking up, keep watching the skies, keep listening to the boots on the ground information from people like Rob Heatherly and Shannon, who's in the chat under military witnesses to UAP. You need to listen to people like that. You need to listen to Lou Elizondo, because whether you like him or not, he is working on your behalf, on our behalf, to get the message out. That's the key. That's why he stepped back and is working behind the scenes. Now, when Travis Taylor came out, Travis Taylor was the one that is kind of replacing him in a way. I asked Rob before the show if he thought he was going to work with Lou, and I think I also asked on the show here, and he said yes. What do you think, Rob?
Which aspect? You covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I did. Sorry. Okay. In regards to, let's take a step back for a second. In regards to civilian reports, NASA claims that they're going to study civilian reports and take in civilian reports and actually show them the credence that they deserve, rather than avoiding them as the military has. I mean, chain of custody that is necessary for data, which is very rigorous within the military personnel. I can understand why they are concentrating on military personnel sightings, but there are a lot of credible observers within the civilian population. And what I want to know from you is, do you think that the UAPTF or the AIMSIG group, AOI MSG, is eventually going to consider looking at civilian reports?
I think they're going to stay with the military. We also can't lose sight that the Air Force in the background stood up a sister program recently that we need to go back and look at some point. They kind of flew the radar with that one. Their NARCAP was an organization by Ted Road that's for like 30 years now that took anonymous reports from civilian and military pilots when there wasn't a reporting mechanism for either one. It was discouraged. But I think NASA would actually, if they get reports from people where they're high up in the atmosphere and things, they might even be able to corroborate, even though if they don't tell the civilians that, they could have corroborating sensor evidence from space that could corroborate their stories potentially. So it'd be a sound move on their part to take civilian reports, and then they can match it up with their data and see if they get hits, which is sound. But the civilian population needs a way to report, because previously they didn't. It was just they didn't know who to call, whether it was a local police station, or a lot of times they call the local bases and they just dismiss them and tell them that they don't call us back. They don't want to hear it. So they need to be heard. And they do have, especially when they can bring data sets to bear, and if they can get the cooperation to other militaries and things, branches of the military, to corroborate it with NASA, and start cooperating with each other, they could actually start figuring this out. And I do think that the Air Force has already decades worth of material, because they know everything up to middle orbit of space around the entire globe, of what these are, how many there are, where they come and go at frequent things. They have to have all that data. There's no way to think that they don't, with all the systems and training and personnel they have. There's just no way they could not know. They're just being completely disingenuous now and acting like a fourth branch of the government that's gone rogue. And Congress is going to bring them to heel. They have to understand they are not autonomous, and they answer to Congress ultimately.
Right. We were talking the other day about the identification and tracking of UAPs going through their transmedium stage. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, we've got earthquake sensors in the bottom of the oceans and things, but UAP, when they go transmedium, when they make that transition, they give off a unique RF signal, and that puts off an infrasonic sound wave, which is the only thing that's picked up at Challenger Deep. Now everything else is filtered out, and infrasound sound waves will bounce around the planet, and almost always they'll go through Challenger Deep before they terminate. There's also a layer of the upper stratosphere that does that as well, but it'd be hard to place sensors up there. So I think, there's nothing to corroborate this, that they haven't Challenger Deep, but there was discussion I read of putting sensors down there that could harvest those signals. But I know our earthquake sensors already pick those up that are at the bottom of the ocean, and that they give off unique signatures, just like the one in Antarctica, that antenna array that takes in, it measures the Earth's electromagnetic field fluctuations, but it would also sense these transmedium signals that are being emanated as well.
The array that's in Antarctica, which was described to us as a ice cube neutrino system, is really an ELF antenna array, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a detector, and it doesn't transmit anything. Doesn't transmit EMF. It might generate EMF a little bit, but mostly it's just an antenna. It takes in the Earth's electromagnetic field and senses that.
So all those devices that are in the ice, then what are they for?
That's all to sense the electromagnetic field, gamma rays, lightning bursts, put off and have fluctuations in that, so they're able to sense every lightning strike, and high energy from the sun. They can tell the field strength of the Earth's electromagnetic field by averaging out over time the total emissions of the sun that's hitting our, like solar storms and things like that. They can measure that with those array systems down there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Antarctica that we really don't know what's going on. I mean, there's some research going on, and some of that research, we interviewed somebody recently who said that they had access because they had a key. But in regards to what I understand, classified programs, you need high security clearances and you need a lot of background checks and things of that nature if you're going to access a restricted area. Otherwise, you would be detained no matter what your function or job is. No disrespect to that man, but I do not believe that you can access a classified facility without having the proper identification and background checks, at least from my military standpoint. Do you believe that, Rob?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. And even in civilian applications where I worked as an engineer, we worked with the blueprints, some of them that were, that we had to sign NDAs. Like I worked on the Pentagon project, that repaired after 9/11 for materials. We had those blueprints and things and the specifications that we couldn't let them out of our sight. And we had to sign NDA agreements to not, allow anybody to access them, or that we wouldn't make copies of them or anything. So to think that somebody could access even our office space without proper clearance and the right key card that would give them admission, they don't operate that way. You don't have sensitive programs behind a locked door that's going to allow the janitor to come in at any time they choose and come rushing into your desk to see what you're working on, where you'd have to shut down all your computers and cover your papers up. That just doesn't happen. That's not even realistic. So, yeah.
Well, I got to come out and say this real quick. Thank you to X1 or Nick Williams for the 222 super sticker. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And also to My Flock is Everywhere for the 99-cent super sticker. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just, there are chains of custody that you have. There are degrees of protection, because you can't have projects like that. Just like what Travis was talking about, we don't want our adversaries knowing what we're doing. You can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. So they would have to have some kind of, in any sensitive project like that, things in place to protect the projects that they're doing, and not let anyone, even people that were custodial and working in that capacity would have to sign NDAs and have go down do background checks and have some kind of a clearance and things to operate. Because otherwise, it's like with what I investigated with the Department of Energy in the how they operated in the 90s. They were found to be completely fast and loose with our nuclear secrets, that where their defensive posture was stellar, that you couldn't invade to get onto a base, but you could get a day pass and come in and take pictures of nuclear documents that were laying out in the open on shelves, literally. And they had to come in and retool and force them to get outside oversight, because they weren't conducting themselves with the right, appropriate defensive measures to protect sources and methods. And they don't just do guard our nuclear stockpiles and our ICBMs. They also do skunkworks type projects where they innovate and create other energy weapons, and anything that the DOE would be working on, I guarantee it would, our nuclear assets would pale in comparison to what they're probably developing, along with the Air Force. So you can't leave that stuff out in the open, and you have to have clearance to get access. It's just the way these things roll with civilian.
Right, and that also applies to UAP information that is being handled by the task force and also the AIMSIC group, correct?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, because like we saw with Lou, he was running ATIP for all that time, for over 2010 to 7 years he was running it, and his immediate supervisors and didn't know, because they couldn't be trusted. So and he had people sitting right next to him at the next desk that they didn't even know what he was working on. because he didn't leave his folders open for them to see what he's working on or go to lunch and leave his monitor up. For the janitor to come in to check the plumbing at his desk, which I dare say most desks don't have plumbing running through them, but
right.
They don't just leave that stuff laying out when they go take a break. They protect those secrets, and they get those clearances for a reason.
Right.
They're able to protect it. They have
to. Exactly. And that's why we want to let people know who are participating online and in the chat room. One of the difficulties for getting information out in the open to the public is all the clearances, all the security measures that have been applied to the documents, to the photos, everything. They got to get reversed. They have to be lifted, and that takes a process. It's kind of like the government statement that with government red tape, there's an endless amount of tape, which is the truth. So when we want an answer right away, after 75 years of withholding the evidence, or more for that matter, are we going to get it? No. We're going to get it over a period of time, and it will come. It's just a matter of going through the process to get rid of these security clearances, lift them, and lift all the security measures that they put into place to get us the information. Isn't that correct, Rob?
Yeah, it's like a train trying to get through a barricade. You can't do it when it's trying to get up to speed from a standstill. You got to get up to speed first, where it's got the momentum to not be able to be stopped with the roadblocks that they keep trying to put back in place with this. They're working on immunity to where they can speak freely to Congress, and they are confident that there's going to be some civilian aspects of that come to bear at some point down the road, which, I'm optimistic that we'll see something, within the year that will be definitive and put this argument to rest, that we're not dealing with human technologies here. It's something that is sentient and it's beyond our understanding, and it's not human creation. From there, they don't really know what it is. From everything I've seen of all the different TS groups that are read in and investigating this, they all that I've watched don't understand what this is, and they even state if anybody claims to have the answers, they're a liar. They don't know. They don't even know themselves, and that's legitimate because you even see some of them like Mitt Romney coming out of the top secret briefing last year, during right before the June 25th unclassified version. They were shell shocked, and he was saying that we have to get on top of this and figure it out because this is something profound, something to that extent, and he was shocked, he was stunned. And I've watched some of the people that got that briefing, and they all had that same effect with them, that they were just shell shocked with what they learned, and it completely changed their worldview, in an instant.
Right, it does change your worldview. That is definite. Rob, do you want to mention your charity again?
Yeah, Shannon Scott is it's his brainchild, one of his dreams that he had for wanting to give back to Wounded Warrior Project. He was a retired veteran that's disabled, and it's also something that's near and dear to Lou's heart, mine, and yours for veteran outreach. So we came up with the idea to start a charity, and hopefully we can have it each year that will benefit Wounded Warrior Project, pinups for vets, and St. Francis No Kill Shelter that's up in Lou's area that needs support, so they can keep the doors open. So we're going to get that up and rolling. We're in the process of getting it rolling now and applying for the 501c3 charity organization, and then we'll get it running.
Isn't there a special thing that you might give away during this charity? What is that?
Lou's contemplating giving away one of his World War II Jeeps. If we can get a way to give it as a prize and have a liability waiver, and if it, I propose, if we get over, hit the $50,000 mark, which I'm optimistic we will, that'll trigger somebody to win the Jeep if we get to that point.
Yeah, it sounds very awesome. Good luck with that, and we are 100% behind you here on the channel. And I'm sure a lot of people in the chat room and watching online are also behind you as well. We want to thank everybody who was watching online this evening. We want to thank Rob for coming on and being my co-host. Thank you, Rob. And we want to thank Shannon for showing up in the chat room this evening. He's been having some medical issues and it's difficult for him to be here. So thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it very much. Thanks to everybody who watched. And just a note, I'm thinking about doing a show on Thursday in regards to actual interviews from some of the big names from Roswell UFO Festival. It'll be more in depth with the people that were spoken to by my representative in Roswell, who is Matt Moniz. He is the co-host of Interspace TV with Tom Reed. Tom Reed is also one of my fill-in co-hosts, and he's down at Roswell representing me as well, actually selling some of my merch and talking to people and asking people to join the channel. So if you want to come back and check from time to time to see if we're going to have a show on Thursday, we'll let you know. And if we do, Rob will be back and perhaps some other people as well. Also, coming up next week, we're going to be talking to David Altman, David Mason, and Caroline Corey from the movie Tear in the Sky. We're going to dig deep into the technology that was designed and used to gather the data that they collected during the investigation near Catalina Island. And we're going to find out how they vetted that information to claim it was 100% legit. So let's take a look at that next Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for coming this evening, and as always, good night.